Nick. She is a professional potter, a certified NIA NIA instructor, an author also, generally an entrepreneur and very impressive person and all around. She's also a former gastrointestinal biome donator, among other things. And her speech today is on the realization process. Look forward to hearing what she's going to talk about today. Let's give a round of applause for Amy.
Thank you, Zach. I'll go ahead and spotlight my video. Hi, everybody. As Zach said, I'm going to talk today about the realization process, and that is a meditation practice. The reason that I was missing last week is that I was in the first half of my second module of teacher training to be a realization process teacher. I got certified 2 years ago to teach the meditations, so I've been doing that for 2 years. And this training was called Healing Ground, and it was profound, and I feel really excited to share about it with you. Today, I'll be talking a little bit about my personal journey with realization process. I'm going to do my best to give you an idea of what the realization process is. And then also we'll do a little sample meditation. And then I'd like to talk about its potential application to us as Toastmasters. 2 years ago, I had a client and he came in and he said, I think this was a process work client in my therapy practice. And he said, I think you would really like this book I'm reading. It's called Trauma and the Unbound Body. And when I heard that title, something in me just went click, 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 click. Trauma and the Unbound Body. That sounded amazing to me, just right up my alley. I'm such a somatically focused person and therapist. And so the combination of trauma, which is a psychological issue, and the unbound body, which is a somatic issue, just everything kind of came together. And right away I bought the book. It's the first book I ever read on my phone. I walked around the dog park like this, reading my phone. And I just ate it up, everything about it. It was just feeding me. I just loved this idea that, all of our trauma is stored in our body and that we can unbind from that. There's a way, there's a path to unbinding from the trauma that we hold in our bodies. This really lit me up. So right away, I went home and I Googled it, realization process. What the heck is this? And I found that there were 3 main teachers and one of them lived in Portland. And I am quite a gadabout in my navigation through life. And it seems that everything I'm interested in is in Portland. It's just this kind of crazy thing that everything I become interested in is in Portland. So I go to the guy's website in Portland, John Hansen, and he says at the bottom of his thing, get in touch for a free session. So I thought, awesome, I'll have a free session. So we had our session. And I enjoyed it. It wasn't easy for me. He took me through a meditation. It wasn't easy for me, but I understood I got the feeling for it. And I thought I should continue with this. Do you have any workshops or something that I could come and take? And he said, well, I do have a teacher training module coming up, but it's full. I thought, teacher training? I just want to take a workshop. The next day he called me and he said, Amy, a spot just opened up in my teacher training module. I really think it's for you. And I said, okay, let me take 24 hours to think about it. And I wound up going. About a couple weeks later, I was in Portland sitting in with a group of people doing meditations all day, somatic meditations. And then a couple months later, there's a process to learning. And right away, just like I do with almost everything I learn, I just started teaching it right away. And so I gathered a group together and we meet weekly and I read these somatic meditations. So what is the realization process? It's all about inhabiting our bodies. It is about actually living inside our bodies. This seems like not a big deal, like it would be easy, because I do believe that it is quite simple. The meditations, as you hear them, are very simple, but to actually inhabit your body, I'll talk for myself, to actually inhabit my body is a long, long journey. And so I've been teaching these meditations for a while and slowly getting pieces of them. But it wasn't until this last week of the teacher training for Healing Ground, which is where we worked on the fascia. I know there's more for me to tell you. Anyway, in this last week is when I really felt like I first experienced the realization process, where I've had some unbroken periods of time where I actually felt like I was fully inhabiting my entire body from front to back, from top to bottom, in all ways, in a way that I felt like the images that I've had are either a toddler or like a big baby or a walrus. Those are the two images that help me connect to this feeling of it actually inhabiting my body. The idea, the main practice of realization process is to connect to something that the founder, her name is Judith Blackstone, she calls fundamental consciousness. And fundamental consciousness, you can think of it as a the most subtle, fine matrix of existence that pervades everything. It pervades everything solid, and it pervades all space. It pervades our bodies. But if we can't inhabit our bodies, we cannot fully realize fundamental consciousness. And so what happens is that when we can fully inhabit our bodies and sense fundamental consciousness inside, and then also attune to fundamental consciousness outside, then we can feel both completely at one and whole in ourselves, and also connected to everything else. Like I said, this training focused on the fascia, and the fascia is connective tissue inside our bodies that create an internal matrix that go through every organ. They go through our bones. It connects our skin to our organs, to our blood, to our bones, to everything. It connects everything, the fascia. And what happens when we experience trauma of any kind, psychological, physical, mental, is that the fascia tends to bind. We tend to come up with ways to survive. We strategize ways on a somatic level. We strategize ways to succeed. And part of my self-discovery through this last training is in my face. A lot of it was in my face. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm not smiling as much as I normally do. Normally, I think that my speeches kind of look something like this. And not only am I smiling, and my whole body is kind of bound in this smile, which was a strategy of mine, but I'm also very forward. I tend to be very forward. And this is something that I think that we often do when we're giving a speech or maybe listening to someone, is that we want them to know that we're with them. So we actually leave our bodies and try to go into them for empathy or compassion, to show something. However, if I go forward, I don't know if you can feel it in your bodies, but you might go back, because it's actually quite invasive for me to try to get inside you. Better for me to fully connect to myself and be present fully to myself and to the space between us and to you, and to connect to the space that connects us. There's so much to say, and I can't say it all. But what I'd like to do is give you a little feel for what the realization process is. So first, go ahead and just put your awareness on your hands. And just, this is using your mind. This is the difference between awareness and inhabiting. And this is where the realization process is very unique, I think, and different from other meditations. So if we become aware of our hands, we might notice things about them like the temperature. You might notice some tension in them. You might notice the position or what they're in contact with. It's like putting the mind on the hands, noticing details about them. Now, see if you can drop out of your mind and inside your hands and actually live inside your hands. See if you can take up all that internal space of living inside your hands. And now I'll go ahead and invite you to see if you can live inside your whole body. Just see if you could just get a quick little taste of it without trying. Just settling in, experiencing your body as a container with a front and a back and a top and a bottom, and you live inside it. Every cell, 75 trillion cells. And you can just go ahead and let that go. I would love to take you on a deeper journey. That's a piece of it, is inhabiting the whole body. Another piece is sensing the subtle core of the body, which is an energy line that goes up from the perineum through the crown. And this is an incredible practice to sense this fine, thin filament of electric energy that goes up through us. When we can settle enough in our body and not grip, we can feel this very pristine cord of energy or filament of energy. Now, for me, this is very practical for giving speeches, because we tend as humans, as performers maybe, to be up and forward. So Judith Blackstone says that most people live about their locus of their own consciousness is about right here. It's ahead of them and above them. That's where we find ourselves. It's very mind. So, and that, I don't know if you know, but if you feel anxiety ever, that's very kind of up and out feeling. We go up and out, we leave our bodies because it's too traumatic. We get hurt, we get scared. I experienced this before I signed on to Toastmasters. I felt myself getting anxious about giving a speech and going up and out. And so my training for myself is to come back and access that subtle core of my body so I can stay connected to myself and connected to you as I speak. And hopefully my message will go in more deeply. So I look forward to having new experiences now as a Toastmaster, as I learn to more fully inhabit my body and more fully live in that subtle core of the body. And if any of you ever wants to join for realization process meditations, I'm teaching at least once or twice a week online, and I'd love to have you.
Thank you so much.